Not that I didn't accept it or it was a problem for me to accept. It was just like so new to me. Like, I ain't cooking for nobody. I ain't having nobody's baby. I ain't, you know what I'm saying? When you become a Muslim, you got to kill that ego. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome and welcome back again to my channel. My name is Maya and this is Life After. What life is like after becoming Muslim. So, this video will be all about things that I found difficult after reverting, after accepting Islam. Things that I found like maybe that took time for me to adjust to, or, whatever. So, the first thing I would say is the separating of sexes, genders. So, you guys know that here in the US, there is no separation of genders. There's more of a separation of races than there than there is of separation of gender. And so, when I became a Muslim, you know, I didn't realize how often I would find myself in the company of men, whether it be alone or whether it be men that I'm just not supposed to have my hair out with, or and what's crazy is that you don't generally see these people as like an issue. As women, we know who we're into and who we're not into. And so when you're around your cousins, your uncles, whatever, you don't really think about putting on a hijab to cover yourself, and you don't often think about your aura and things like that, at least here. And I think a lot, at least for us here in the US, you don't really think about covering yourself. If they're family, you don't think about covering. So that's one thing, like, I it took me a while to even start taking notice of like the people around me. And it's not that I'm the type of person who just like disregards the people and things around them. I'm not actually. I wouldn't say that I'm like very astute and I'm I notice everything. But because of the way I grew up, I definitely notice who is in the room. I notice their demeanor. I notice like their attitude, if they seem kind, if they seem like, like they're about to pop off or something like that. And so, but this is further than that. You're not just looking at the attitudes of people, you're looking at who's there in the first place. And so for me, that kind of took some time. And I say time to develop it properly. It has taken years. It has taken a lot of help from my husband, family members, just kind of like either giving me more information on who is my muharram and who's not, like who I can be uncovered around and who I can't be and stuff like that, when and when I can't. This is all stuff that I kind of learned along the way. But there obviously you can learn this right up front, and if you're like a very a person with a good memory, then it's something that you can keep and you would know immediately. For me, it wasn't something, and I'll be honest, the people that I was around, a lot of times they weren't that educated, and they were more aware of social norms rather than religious norms. And even though the religion is popular from in where they're from, the social norms supersede always, it seems, wherever we are. Your social norms, what people do in society, supersedes religious norms. So sorry, I'm looking outside. I'm sitting on my bed and I'm looking outside waiting for my kids to come home from school. But okay. So that's the first thing. Let me see. Second thing. Okay, so this is like kind of a big one. So one of the more, I would not say that it was necessarily difficult to accept, but it took time to understand. And I guess, you know what, it's probably better if I say that about all of this stuff, because it's not that I didn't accept it or it was a problem for me to accept. It was just like so new to me that it was just like, I don't know what to do. Does that make sense? Like it was just so new. And it wasn't like it was hard to accept. It was just like almost hard to comprehend. So the next thing was the roles of women. Again, I go back to being raised as an American woman, being raised as a Black woman, being raised by Black women, single Black women. Um, just the idea of even committing to gender roles, I didn't understand the importance of it at first. And so I kind of disregarded it. I knew what was haram and halal, and that was kind of like where I stayed. But when it came to like, I don't know, let me think of, cooking and cleaning. There are so many different interpretations of what is right and what is wrong, what is a woman's responsibility in the home versus a man's, and all of that. And because when you're 18, 19 years old and you're a girl, you like, I ain't cooking for nobody. I ain't having nobody's baby. You know what I'm saying? That didn't just leave just because I had accepted Islam. So what did leave was this idea that I ain't, when you become a Muslim, you got to kill that ego. You don't tell yourself you are or you're not. You're waiting for Allah to tell you what you will and you won't do. And so, me becoming a Muslim, I had to change the way that I saw myself as a woman. I think my phone is falling. Yeah, so I had to change my thought process and what that meant to be a woman. And I had to learn that women, we are we are such unique creatures, such living, energetic, dynamic beings. And Allah is the one that truly understands that. I mean, He's really the only one who understands truly the mind of a woman. A lot of us women don't understand our minds, let alone trying to get a man to understand them. And so when I started to live my life according to what Allah had willed for me, what Allah has willed for all women, my feminine self blossomed, and I stopped forcing myself to be hardcore. I allowed my husband to just cater to me and take care of me. I was just so used to doing everything on my own and doing everything for myself. And I never expected that a man would even want to. Nowadays men are like taught to have to look for women who are very independent. Look for women who are, and that's fine. You should find an independent woman, but they're looking for the wrong reasons. They're looking for an independent woman because they don't want to have to take care of her. You should look for an independent woman because you want someone who has the mindset and the foresight to be able to carry a household and a business. If she can be independent, you better believe she can, cater to a household. If she's able to take care of her own bills and stuff like that, then definitely she would make an excellent spouse and teammate. I mean, that's just one aspect. Obviously, there are so many more characteristics within a person that you want to look into when you're looking for a spouse. But when it comes to both men and women, we're always looking for the independent one, like somebody who is, good on their own. They don't need too much from you. And it's not because we're not willing to give. Most of us are willing to give when it comes to love. It's just that we don't want to feel like it is incumbent upon us to pay for the bills, and we don't want to feel like it's our responsibility or that we will fall or that there's no safety net, and for many, many years, I worked for many years. My husband has always encouraged me to do what it is that I want to do. And for many years, I've worked because that's what I wanted to do. Many years, I've gone to school. I have a master's degree because he encouraged me to do all these things. And all of these things were things that I had planned to do before I was a Muslim. And so he encouraged me to continue that. Being married should not stifle a person's education or career, unless, of course, you're having children. And that goes for both genders. Once you have a child, whether you're a male or a female, it is going to change your life. Definitely, when the child is young, it's going to change the life of the mother more immediately and more profoundly, I think, than the fathers. But the fathers will come later in life, and later in the life of the child, when that relationship builds and grows. The relationship with moms, it starts in the womb, so that's why it's a little bit different. But I was saying all of that to say what? Yeah, so oh, the independent spouse, which was what in regards to what? The independent spouse. Okay, okay. So gender roles, accepting gender roles. Um, I never really had an issue with the hijab, but I never wore it like this until within the last like year. I almost never even prayed in these. Um, Why? I think for many of us women, like so many things in life, for both men and women, um, your understanding of it develops over time. And my understanding of what modesty is has developed over time. And so, what I used to do and what I accepted when I was 20 is much different from when I was 30. And now, when I'm 40, is much different. You know, um, I just think that's how life is supposed to be personally. Now, I know there are girls who start off here and they elevate themselves to the burqa. Alhamdulillah, mashallah. Every woman is different. It is so important that people understand that there are Muslim women who are not covering their hair or dressing modestly, but that does not invalidate them being Muslim. There are Muslim women who are afraid to wear the hijab. That does not invalidate their faith. These things are between her and Allah. And yes, we should encourage each other to do what is best. But when it comes to how a person presents themselves to other people, that is a thing that's constantly changing and developing. And so for me, that has changed and developed over time. My idea of what it means to be a mother has changed over time. But it definitely changed a lot when I became a Muslim because I stopped seeing the role of mother as the absolute caretaker and started to see her in a partnership, and that my role had more to do with home life than society. That's just how I see it. You can see it a different way. Now, I'm not saying that mothers don't play a part in society. Obviously, we do. We are raising the human race. But excuse me. But what I mean is that I thought my role would extend much further than it does before I became a Muslim. And I'm glad that I don't have to do so much. I'm glad that I don't have to be both male and female in my or sorry, both mother and father in the lives of my children. Yeah. So one of the hardest things that I deal with on a regular basis is the relationships with the people around me, especially my family members. Um, because of how I grew up, I have done a lot of distancing myself from different parts of my family because of the way I feel when I'm around them, or maybe the way that they've made me feel at one point or another, things maybe that they've said. But in Islam, you're not allowed to cut the ties of kinship. Like, it's huge, huge sin. Um, you can't do it. And so I don't cut my family off despite what they might think. I just don't call that often. I don't text that often. And it has way more to do with me trying to maintain a stable emotional balance than it does anything else. And I really hope my family understands that. Um, the One of the biggest things that changed for me when I became a Muslim was just who I was around mostly. And after being a Muslim for a couple of years, I realized that I could not be around the people that I love as much as I want to because of what they think of me and some of the things that they say, because I would hate them. I would end up hating them. I would end up um, turning away from them completely. And I didn't want to hate anybody. I didn't want to hate my siblings. I didn't want to hate. I just didn't. I don't like that feeling inside of me. And so, what I do to keep myself from really disliking someone for something that they've said or done is I distance myself from them if they're my family member, because you can't cut yourself off from them. You have to maintain, the family ties. And so, yeah, over the years, I've just tried to keep my relationships with my family just like, very cordial. As Muslims, we have the responsibility of always being on our best behavior, always showing the best character and conduct, being the first to be kind, being the first to give gifts. And so, um, I am probably the last to do many things, but when it comes to trying to be kind to my family members, that's something that I stick to. Inshallah. I hope they see it that way. I realize now that just because you want people to see things a certain way does not mean that they will. And just because you think you've presented it to people in such a way does not mean that they will accept it or process it that way. Obviously, I know that from YouTube, but I also know that from real life. Um, People understand things based on their experiences, and they interpret them based on their experiences. And sometimes they misinterpret the meaning behind your actions and what you've said or done. And there's nothing you can do about that. You do your best, and you leave the rest to Allah. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so this will be my last one because my kids are starting to come home and they're going to keep stopping me. So, um, the last one I wanted to say was one of the hardest things that I've had to learn, or something like that, is learning how to schedule my life around prayer. Um, Praying 5 times a day was one of the most transformative things that happened. Sorry. So, yeah, the prayer was probably the most transformative aspect of becoming a Muslim. And then, like, then of course the hijab for me as a woman, but just like learning how to stop midlife and just like pray. That has taken a lot of learning for me. And it makes sense because you start teaching your kids to pray. Like, I mean, your kids start learning to pray when they're like babies. Like, they see you praying, they're at the prayer mat, goofing off, they go to the masjid. And then, like, when they turn 7 is when you force them to pray. Like, you start teaching them to pray. I'm gonna have another kid come up in here in a minute. Yeah.